Welcome to Practical Talk. I'm Heather, a first-generation entrepreneur and founder of Holloway Media Services. My intention with this podcast is to teach entrepreneurs how to advance their careers with practical business advice. I'm talking about real actions you can take to grow any aspect of your business. The entrepreneurs on this podcast are not just telling you their stories, they're sharing their secrets to success, and it starts right now. If you're enjoying this topic at any moment, please share the episode with your network. Post it on social and tag us. And if you haven't yet, go subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Thank you. All right, joining me today on the conversation is Matt Bailey, founder and lead trainer at Site Logic. Matt brings marketing know-how along with extensive B2B and B2C sales experience. His training merges sales and marketing goals to produce a more dynamic, efficient, and accountable strategy. He has a passion to produce confident and profitable marketers who in turn create profitable companies. Since 1998, Matt has presented at thousands of companies, conferences, and workshops. He's one of the highest rated presenters worldwide for his ability to communicate complex information in a practical, humorous way. And that is why I have this podcast, is to bring practical ideas and humor into marketing. And Matt, I am so thrilled that you're joining me today to do just that.
Oh, thank you, Heather. It is a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So Matt, you are the data and analytics guy, right? So tell me about yourself and why Site Logic is around.
I still laugh when people say, the introduction that you did, you're the data analytics guy. I'm like, no, I'm a sales guy who had to learn analytics is what it was. It all started back in the 90s. I'm building websites because I was selling commercial real estate. And it got to the point where I realized if I want to sell property outside of my region, you had the local MLS, you had the paper, and then I'm looking at ads in Southern Living because I had a bed and breakfast. A full page color ad was $12,000.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So I started building websites, and within a couple months, I've got rankings in then Yahoo and Alta Vista. And I'm getting visitors, and people are commenting that, hey, I did a search the other day for, real estate in our area, and you're on the front page. Now, here's the cool thing. I had a journalism background. And so when I built a website, I utilized journalistic practices, headline, subheadings, bullet points, images with, the text underneath to explain what the image was.
Yeah. And also answering the questions, right? The who, the what, the where, the why. You're answering it. So your messaging is dialed in. Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, to me, it was a no-brainer. I'm going to lay this out like I've learned to lay things out in a newspaper. So that took off. I'm getting so many leads, and I'm getting all these leads from search. And I think it was up over 90% of my leads were from search. And I'm just riding this. I'm busy. And then one day I sat down to work on the website, and I've got about 2 hours. I'm like, what's the most profitable thing I could do right now with 2 hours? And that I never realized the implications, but what I asked is what I call in capital letters, the question. It's the question, because the question that I asked defined what information do I need? So if I wanted to find out what was the most profitable thing, well, then I needed to know, well, what about all these things? What do they result in? So it started me on understanding a CRM. Started me on understanding analytics and combining those two and doing sales tracking. And it took a number of months to pull all this together. What I found, number one, big numbers lie. That was first and foremost, because over 90% of my traffic is coming from search engines. However, none of my sales came from that source. And this is the importance of knowing the question. Because if the question was, what's giving me the most leads? I would have answered it very quickly with my analytics, and I would have followed down the wrong road. The question was profit, and that changed everything. It got me into my sales tracking. And what I learned is the majority of my sales came from a link that I had bought on someone else's website for like $20 a year, and it came from PR. I was putting out press releases. I was doing interviews in magazines about how to sell specific types of commercial properties. And those things affected search rankings. But it was the direct PR aspect that was really building the business and resulting in sales. So as I said, I'm not a data guy. I'm a sales guy who learned that data enables me to sell better and more effectively.
Wow, that's awesome. But also have to have like this analytical side to it. Did you like the numbers? Because I got to tell you, Matt,
I hate numbers.
When we say, okay, great, me too, unless it's profit, right? But when we're thinking like, oh my gosh, data and analytics, literally my eyes just gloss over. Thank God I have a paid ads expert on our team that she can digest and give me that information in terms that I can consume. So you're not a numbers guy yet.
No.
You found fortune in the numbers.
Yeah. And analytics, you and 90% of the population glaze over. No, analytics were about math. I would be in trouble. I mean, to this day, like my kids get A's in math and I'm shaking my head going, it ain't for me. I barely survived algebra. I barely survived geometry. Those things were such a mystery to me. And yet when it came to analytics, because what we're tracking in analytics, there's a story. And when there's a story, it's easier to comprehend. Analytics tracks behavior. And when we start to understand that, it's less about numbers and more about people. And then what makes it easier is when you put dollar signs next to it, that this type of behavior results in this much money. Now, it's a little more exciting to sit there and kind of pull things apart and look at what's happening.
Oh my gosh. Well, that was a gem right there. The fact that you said analytics detect or shed a light on behavior. So my mind just exploded because now the question is, okay, well, what behaviors do we want them to take?
Right.
Yeah. So how do we,
Absolutely.
and I'm assuming that is a custom thing for every business.
Well, the problem is, so when you get an analytics program, regardless of what it is, what other vendor is.
And we're thinking what Google Analytics, what kind of programs?
Yeah, you can use Google Analytics. I'm actually in the process right now of testing about 6 other analytics products because I've had it up to here with Google Analytics.
Okay.
I'm kind of done and I'm de-Googling. So any analytics product, Adobe, Google, any of these things, they are one size fits all off the shelf products. And what that means is regardless of what kind of business you are, Fortune 500, manufacturing, e-commerce, coffee shop down the street, if you get Google Analytics, you're going to see the same data in the same format as everybody else. That's the problem. And so when you go and you open it up and you see these reports and you're looking at it going, well, that must be important because that's the first thing I see. It's not. It's the same thing every other business sees. And what analytics do is they just gather as much data as possible. And then they produce reports, the same reports that everybody else sees, that are probably relevant, maybe not, until you start customizing specifically to who you are, what your goals are, what are you trying to accomplish. You see, that's the big filter that you need, because otherwise, analytics, all it's doing is reporting all this behavior that's happening. 90% of it's not relevant.
Yeah, that's what we get caught up in because we don't know. We get caught up in what's called vanity metrics. Can you talk about vanity metrics for a minute?
Vanity metrics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, I go all the way back. Big numbers lie. Yep. The corollary to that is, but they look darn good on reports.
Makes us feel good.
Yeah, that's vanity metrics. Vanity metrics are like impressions, views, clicks, likes. And part of it is we lump all this under this new term now called engagement. And I like to laugh at engagement used to mean commitment. Now it means that someone clicks something. We're lumping all of this in because we don't know what to really measure. We don't know the numbers that affect business growth. We are approaching with questions. And when you don't approach with questions, you just take what information is dished out to you. So yeah, getting caught up in vanity metrics, that's what happens when, yes, you don't have a clear business objective, defining the numbers or the measurements that are critical to achieving that objective.
Yeah, I got caught up, we're a social media marketing agency. And when I was first starting out thinking I knew everything about social media, which I didn't, But that's where you go. You're like, is my follower count growing? Thinking of a website though, what are vanity metrics for a website? Are those impressions? Like website and SEO is so new to me.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I can talk social all day long, brother, but SEO, I'm like, what?
Oh yeah. So I got 25 years of that I can open up. Let's just start with visits. So when I had my agency, one of the things that was absolutely like a recurring theme is a business would say, we want more visitors. And I would have to ask, is that what you want?
You're like, why?
Is that, does that drive revenue? And now here's the thinking is, and when I asked, does more visitors drive more revenue? Yeah, of course. Does it? There was this assumption that more people equals more money. I'm like, there is a lot of real estate in between those two statements. They have to come. They have to do something. You have to sell it. There has to be a transaction. There has to be all these things that have to happen. Simply getting more people does not equate to more money. In a lot of businesses, and I feel like we've kind of gotten over that hump, but I still run into these assumptions. More visitors or more followers will result in more business. Does it? No. It's about the depth of the relationship, the depth of what people are doing. And so real quick, that vanity metric of visits, some people just assume that means success in other areas, unless you're getting, paid by page view, which, publishers and ads, they kind of get into that. And it's a whole nother realm. Vast majority of companies, it's not about the visits, it's about the visitor and who's doing something that makes you money.
Yeah. Like, unless you're a Huffington Post, a BuzzFeed, a CNN, a journalism, that's where you want your viewers. And that metric might be one that you're going for. Get more eyeballs on our pages, because on those pages, what happens? Advertising. So it's just like a network, a television network who wants viewership. Same thing there. I pulled up this stat because I wanted to see what we're doing in the digital landscape, Matt. Check this out. Nearly $356 billion were spent on digital advertising in 2020, which brings the point home. Like, we need to start putting a focus on figuring out these behaviors that we need people to take, right?
Yeah. Well, and there's a couple things to that stat. Those type of stats were, and here's the thing, those stats, and yeah, I've got a pile of them. They're impressive numbers to throw out. And again, it comes back to that big numbers lie, because what we're talking about is spend. Whose KPI is how much I spend? And so again, is my emphasis on spend, and because everyone else is spending, that means I should spend. Because Coke spends this much, does that mean I should spend that? Again, the question is spend. What's the real question? And the real question comes down to, what's the effectiveness of this spend? And a lot of digital advertising, and by that I mean like programmatic ads, where I go to an exchange or I go to someone and say, I want to buy digital ads across the spectrum, and I'm willing to pay like $40 per 1,000 impressions. And, that's kind of the rate. And here's the thing, that industry is so fraught with fraud. And just seeing something the other day that maybe, I think it's like, out of every dollar, less than 30 cents actually goes towards your ad being seen on an actual publisher's website. Over 70 cents per dollar is evaporating
in their pocket.
Yeah, exactly. And so now, and here's the thing, and here's why this has become such a problem. Number one, we're focused on spend. We're not focused on the results. Number two, we have marketers that don't understand analytics. When you don't understand analytics, you don't spot fraud. Now, there's companies out there that saying we can validate views. They can't. We can make sure that, only humans are seeing. They can't. No, you can better spot fraud in your analytics than a company that is purporting to give you safe views or anything like that. It's shown they can't.
So it's like an honest measuring stick. If you're outsourcing, any work, any digital work, any advertising work to an agency, it's a measuring stick.
Yeah. Knowing analytics enables you to spot that, okay, I've got 50,000 views on my ad campaign. However, they all came from the same place. And they were all between 2 and 3 in the morning. And none of these domains are actual real domains. You spot that stuff in analytics. And it's very easy to spot a lot of the fraud that way. So it's part of the reason I think this spend has gotten so inflated. Marketers have fallen in love with it, but without the analytics chops to handle that type of thing, you end up just getting lost in the fray.
Yeah, you can get caught up in the hype of, yes, digital marketing is where it's at. Yes, you see these ads all the time. Yes, you know of a friend that's getting leads on Facebook or whatever it is. But, analytics, it's a proof in the pudding. Like whether or not it works, you can improve your ROI with analytics. So, I'm a first generation entrepreneur and I don't like analytics, but I see the importance. So like for a person like me, what are like basics that we need to have?
Okay, the basic is number one, what's your question? What's the question? Capital
The question. Yep.
Is it to increase revenue? Is it to increase profitability? Is it to increase leads? Where's your emphasis? What is your North Star for your business? And based on that, okay, so for example, I want to increase revenue. Great. That means I need to know what my revenue is today. I should have a goal of what I want it to be within the next year. So now I have a baseline. I set my goal and I have to have something to compare to. If you don't have a comparison, you don't have anything to go on. Yeah. So now this is the beginning of my dashboard. My dashboard shows me here's where I want to be. Here's where I am in terms of revenue. That's the first part. Now, what makes me revenue? And here's where I typically have to put the collar on marketers because, immediately they're like, oh, we got to start making videos for TikTok. No, let's reel this back in. What makes revenue? Well, what makes revenue is, increasing leads because we get more leads. That is one of the things that affects revenue. Closing more deals faster. That makes more revenue. Increasing how much customers spend. That increases. So rather than thinking about the marketing side, we want to think about the business, the operations, which from a marketing standpoint, this brings us back to our 4 Ps of marketing, which are not outdated because that has everything to do with revenue and profitability.
Yeah.
So let's think about those things. What makes us revenue? Now I'm at that second level. If I make revenue by increasing leads, now what are the essential measurements? Well, I need to know how many leads I'm averaging and how many leads do I want? What's my goal? And now every month, am I on track to meet my goal? Am I below track to meet goal? And then again, let's go back all the way to where we are. What was the revenue increase? I increased leads. Did I see an increase in revenue based on increasing leads? Let's go to the next step. It's to close deals faster. Well, what's my current lead to sale rate? That's my baseline, my comparative. Where am I at now? What's my lead to sale rate? How much has it increased? And then connect finally, what's that revenue increase? If I increase the lead to sale rate, what's the increased revenue? So we're tying everything back. We get our essential, our comparative, and then how does that go back to revenue? And again, increase the amount of customer purchase, how much they're buying. What's the average? Where do I want to be? Where are we at? And what's that revenue increase look like? How much is there? See, all of a sudden now it's business. It's business questions. Yeah. Now we move into, okay, we're going to gain more leads. Now marketers are like, okay, let's talk about that. Let's gain more leads.
We get back into the game.
Now, and I'm like, well, how do we gain leads? What do we do? What are the things we do that gain leads? And then there's a number of ways to approach this now. It's by campaign. It's by media. It's channel. So how are you going to break it down that makes sense for your business? Yeah. And at this point, before we even start talking about platform like Instagram or TikTok, it's what media are we producing? How is that media used? What type of communications? How are we going? So we're looking more strategically and every element you put there. So if we want to look at, we're creating videos and we're distributing them across different channels. Okay, great. How much is each channel bringing in terms of leads? And how much do those leads contribute to revenue? And now we compare our channels to see which ones are bringing in the most revenue. Yeah. And if we want to take it another step further, this goes all the way back to the question. If my question is increase profitability, all the questions change. All the measurements change. Because now I'm going to compare my channels, not just in terms of revenue realized, but the efficiency of that revenue. How much am I spending on that channel and what am I getting in return? Because now profitability is the question, not just revenue. And so it's the time that it takes to sit down and really work out what are the essential measurements at each stage at the very beginning of your marketing strategy.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you're launching a business or if you've been in business. I mean, you can do this at any moment. And I feel like what you just outlined, thank you, by the way, that was a beautiful, simple, easy way to understand right off the bat. Like you can get started right now with what Matt just said. I mean, you're like our personal little Spock, it's like, if you will, like, let's keep it logical. You know what I mean? Like, let's live long and prosper through analytics. I mean,
absolutely.
It's a very clean way of looking at things. It's a very linear way of looking at things. It's again, logical. It's all logical, common sense, practical. Yeah.
And then once you know, okay, here's what I need to know now, how many leads have been generated through my Instagram campaigns? How much have I spent on that? Well, now I go to analytics and I have a very specific measurement that I need. I go find, now knowing what I need, all I need to do is learn the navigation to get to the report that has the information I need, how to set the dates, look at that campaign specifically. And now I have that number and I take that number and I put it over here. See, a lot of people log into analytics and they're expecting this big red arrow to just point like right here is what you need to know. And that doesn't exist. We need to have the question first. The question defines what data we need. We need to go find that data, bring it back, look at it in the context of our marketing model. And then it makes sense.
Wow, dude, you've been doing this for a minute. You are just pouring out pure gold. And so, this strategy that you learned on your own and now are teaching people how to do this, companies, corporations, individuals, workshops, conferences, the whole nine. You had your real estate business. At what point did you transition? You're like, wait a minute, I can teach this.
So, I was being asked to speak at conferences in the real estate industry and the tourism industry, because like I said, I was doing a lot in bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
And part of it too is I started getting calls from other realtors who, we have a bed and breakfast we're trying to sell. We just want to list it on your site. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I can make money doing this. Ooh. So I started taking other people's listings and I could charge per month how much it's on there, or I could charge a percentage of sale, or, I was coming up with all kinds. And finally it just hit me that, oh, this is so much more fun than real estate. There are so many ways to monetize without actually being in the real estate business. Yeah. So at that moment, I sold that off to another company. Like there was some more I wanted to learn about, how the internet worked, how websites work. I needed to learn some more programming, and then eventually started my own company. Oh boy, probably about 10 years later.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
But yeah, that was kind of the journey there is all of a sudden is like, this is so much more fun. There's so much more going on.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you're doing it, because before we started to record, we talked about delegation and, especially when you're, this is a critical piece of business. And so, for me and everybody, you don't know what you don't know. And so getting with a professional to dial that in will get you to your goal quicker. And so Matt, how can we work with you? What's the best way to go about that?
You can contact me at sitelogic.com. And even better, I started an online training portal. I am creating classes, teaching people how to do SEO, how to do digital marketing, and most of all, how to do and understand analytics. So right now I've got a 3-part analytics series. The first part is loaded and available. Parts 2 and 3 are coming in the next week or two. It's at learn.sitelogic.com.
I love that. I love that so much. Matt, you have given us so much information. Is there anything that we missed to give to our listeners today?
Wow. Don't be intimidated by it. As an example, I taught analytics at a well-known company, and a couple months later, they called me in. They wanted me to advise on creating a job position for the analyst. And what was interesting is all of a sudden there's like, we needed advanced degrees in mathematics and we need this. And eventually I had to tell them, whoa, you want me to advise on this? I'm like, but I'm not even qualified to apply for it.
I almost failed geometry.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like advanced degrees in math. And here's the problem with a lot of analytics training that's out there. It's done by analysts. And if you've ever been with an analyst, they go deep within 3 minutes. They're throwing out terms. It makes my head spin. And I think what I love about it is I look at it from a human standpoint. I look at it from a business person's standpoint. I'm not looking at it. I'm not in love with analytics. I'm in love with making money. And so a lot of it depends on who you're talking to and how they go about doing that. And if they're in love with the data and they're going to all these advanced and predictive and all that, whoa. We just want to know how to make money. We just want to know what's happening right now and what we can do to improve. It doesn't take advanced degrees. It just takes asking great questions.
I love that.
Oh,
I love that.
By the way, you made the Spock reference. I'm going to have to shoot you a link because, man, probably about 15 years ago, I wrote an article about how to understand analytics by analyzing the red shirt phenomenon on Star Trek. So I got you a Trekkie. You'll have to look at that. But it's a whole article about how to understand analytics better by measuring red shirt deaths.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And we're going to put it in the show notes as well so other people can get to your blog post. Final question. What's one book that changed your life? Doesn't have to be marketing and analytics. Yeah.
Neil Postman's Amusing Ourselves to Death.
Why?
Incredible book about media and culture. I read this back in the 80s. And even then, he was predicting how news would become entertainment and entertainment would become news. Wow. And even predicting like modern internet stuff because of how digital changes communication. So even though it's a almost a 40-year-old book, it's still very, very relevant. Anything by Neil Postman, I can't recommend highly enough.
I love that. Knowing what we know now and then going back to the 80s brain and then reading that would be so trippy. I'm going to check that one out. Right. That's amazing. Well, joining me today, Matt Bailey, founder and lead trainer at SiteLogic. You can find him on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. He has the Endless Coffee Cup podcast. You can listen to that on Spotify, SiteLogicMarketing.com. He has online courses. You can hire him as a consultant. You can get him for your workshop and your conference. Book Matt. He knows his stuff. Matt, thank you so very much. You've made data and analytics not as scary.
That's my goal. Thank you, Heather. I really appreciate it.
I'm Heather Holloway, and you've been listening to Practical Talk. Thank you so much for joining our conversation. Check the show notes for resources from our guests and links to other episodes. New episodes are released every Wednesday.